Hello, greetings, my audience. My name's Jake Allen Graham, my newcomers, and welcome to my channel. That's the name of my channel. I'm reviewing a movie named, it's a Marvel character, I think, brand or team brand. I'm sorry, I knew what I was going to review before I recorded, but then I kind of forgot of what Marvel movie I'm reviewing. So I'll pick some from DC, Batman and Robin, the 1997 flick. I'm going to review instead of something Marvel related because I forgot what Marvel product I picked. So I'm going to review George Clooney's Batman movie, Batman and Robin. I give this a 10 out of 10 for George Clooney's a terrible Batman and as equally as a terrible Bruce Wayne as he plays the role as he just doesn't want to be there for a paycheck. Everyone else does a stellar job, solid, and know what kind of silly movie they are in and play it like a silly movie. It's a tongue-in-cheek vibe with this movie, the whole cast. With George Clooney being the only one not in on the joke of what movie he's in. Like, someone probably should have told him he's not making the Perfect Storm movie that he started in. That was serious story. And that was a serious performance by George Clooney. Well, George Clooney giving a generic George Clooney serious performance instead of playing it up like Arnold and Uma Thurman and Chris O'Donnell and everyone else in the movie knows how to play it up and have fun. Except for George Clooney. He just does not doing it. He's not getting the joke on this movie that he doesn't play it for a tongue-in-cheek vibe. He plays it serious and it's straight and it's terrible because he just doesn't get it. George Clooney is completely oblivious and giving the wrong performance of what movie he's in. And that's probably why his performance sticks out so much compared to everyone else's that works for the movie or the script. George Clooney's just taking it too seriously. He's killing the buzz with the tongue-in-cheek vibe that it's going for. So, the rest is great. Arnold's great as his version as Mr. Freeze, the tongue-cheek Mr. Freeze for this version of tongue-cheek. Everything's tongue-cheek in this movie, comedic effect tone it's going for. More playful vibes it's going for this time around with the Batman outing brand. And Uma Thurman does a good job as Poison Ivy. Her Poison Ivy is great, and Chris O'Donnell is great again as reprising his role as his Robin. And Commissioner Gordon Alfred are good in this movie, and they're fine for what they're given with. The only one that's a problem with the performance is George Clooney's performance as Batman and as Bruce. He's just taking too seriously the role. With this movie, this is a silly movie. It meant to be. Tongue-in-cheek, but George Clooney just didn't know what movie he was making, I guess. That's my guess for George Clooney. He didn't know what type of movie he was starring in. Personally, I think Batman Forever was a better film. Because the cast knew what movie, the whole cast, even Batman, that was played by Val Kilmer that time around, was directed by Schumacher again. I felt like the whole cast in that movie knew what movie they were in. A silly movie. So they play with tongue-in-cheek vibes. The whole cast knew what to... I just felt like, I don't know why, George Clooney Batman performance, what felt so off, other than he just took it too seriously. It was kind of surprisingly actually felt out of place and bad with this movie. His own performance alone didn't kill the movie, but because there's so much good performances like Schwarzenegger's and Chris O'Donnell and Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy performance. They're great in the movie Batman and Robin. So that's my review on Batman and Robin. Why I give it a 10 out of 10. It's a fun, silly movie. Like the first Avengers movie from 2012. As fun as that movie. And it's as silly. And as colorful. Visually. I like this, I like the first 2012 Avengers movie, Batman, around 1997. I approve this movie. 10 out of 10 I give this. Thumbs up. I recommend seeing this movie because I enjoyed it that much. 10 out of 10 I'm giving this. Silly movie. This was a fun popcorn movie. And like this video. Hit the like button. Subscribe to my content to join my subscribers, please. So subscribe to my content to grow my subscribers. And that's my review on Batman and Robin, the 1997 flick with George Clooney and Chris O'Donnell and Uma Thurman and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And yeah, those are in the movie Batman and Robin. That's the big cast. So I really like this movie a lot. Fun movie. Cheesy movie. Fun. I don't have a whole lot of promises, and I like the ice pun jokes. That his catchphrase, his ice pun is always ends with ice with freeze and stuff. And motivation and jokes and catchphrases. His dialogues mostly ends with ice. Related to. I enjoy that part of his character. His quirks. Sweet for Mr. Freeze is by Schwarzenegger is a good freeze for this silly movie. Oh, and the guy that played whoever played Bane, the persons that played Bane in this movie for his first outing, it brought to the big screen, Bane was a good Bane. Bane was fun in this movie also. Don't know who actually plays him because he covers his mouth the whole time, face the whole time with the Bane mask. Bane is actually dressed like the iconic Bane from the comics, and not like Tom Hardy's Bane. How Tom Hardy just dresses like Bane, but wears the mask for some reason unexplained, even though he has Bane to slightly resemble Bane from the comics. So you don't not recognize him as Bane. Is why I think he wears the mask. Even though there's no logical reason, like there is in the Schumacher movie why he wears the mask, is because it pumps venom in his body. That's a steroid. In DC lore of comics, venom is a type of steroid. That's a strong one. That's not experimental that can kill you, but because kill some people in the comics. It was designed to kill Bane as an experimental steroid, but this made him jacked and stronger than what he was, and made him jacked. super jacked and strong more than before. Like in the comics, Bane was always like a freakishly strong fighter in the comics, and where he was raised in a prison, his own prison, and then the experiment on the Venom, which made him even more strong, and eventually he broke out of his own prison. And that's the story mythology that DC Comics called for. But in this movie, he's reduced to a henchman and not his own character. He doesn't even talk, getting hardly even speaking lines except growls for beats him. Similar how Tom Hardy speaks and growls. Although I think Bane's easier to understand in the Schumacher movie than by Tom Hardy's Nolan franchise. Understanding the dialogue, what he says. That's not much given, he says. He somehow sounds more intelligible than Tom Hardy's Bane still. What? Things did not get well all around for Bane in terms of adaptation. Let's be honest, Tom Hardy's Bane was pretty a humiliation as much as Batman and Robin's to take on Bane. In the Bane from Batman the Animated Series, the one that Kevin Conroy starred in before Batman the New Adventures, which also starred Kevin Conroy, that Bane from Batman the Animated Series, that Bane sucked. Because Bane was completely butchered into making Batman look good and making that Bane opposing threat like in the comics. Instead, he's used as a tool villain to make Batman look good. That's why I think he's a worse villain than the Croc guy from Batman the Animated Series. I'm sorry, I love Batman the Animated Series, but am I the only one to notice that the Batman villains are the worst in Batman the Animated Series? How they're written, with the exception of some villains like the Joker or the Mad Hatter. A lot of the villains suck in Batman the Animated Series. Because they're toned down to a kids-friendly demographic. I get it. They have to be stupid. That's the thing that the 90s were doing, and I just think, what am I trying to say is, I feel like Batman the Animated Series villains relied too often on making the villains the butt of a joke for Batman to overthrow. And, because that's the problem I have with Batman the Animated Series, the Kevin Conroy original animated show, where he launched his Batman career. I always have problem with how that Bane was portrayed in the show, how he actually couldn't even get the drop on Batman or break Batman's back. And because Batman actually found the easily a weak spot for Bane and exposed it and then beat Bane. That's definitely a different Bane than what we got for Batman the New Adventures, which Kevin Conroy starred in also as Batman again, replaced his role. Personally, I think Batman the New Adventures was a better show, even though it only had one season. Because I felt like the villains were actually a good threat for Batman to take down. And didn't just feel like a B-listed villain of the month week. Like, that's my problem with the original Batman the Animated Series show. Too often the villains that Batman rarely come across repeatedly, after a while I got kind of sick of it, because the villains felt like too often like B villains for Batman to fight. Like they felt like too dumb villains for Batman to be like. Of course, Batman can beat this guy. Of course, he can beat the Joker. Of course, he can beat Poison Ivy because he's Batman. And these villains are jokes after their first appearance in the show. They've come across as seriously B-listed villains written as. Not threatened villains, but just B-listed villains. I'm sorry, but I think, I really think the worst this is one of this Batman show had one of the worst rogues villains in history because they just didn't offer a challenge to Batman at really however in Batman the Animated Series. I mean, like it or hate it, I think Superman the Animated Series from the 90s was a better show. Even though not many people remember that as much, because I think Superman had better villains that knew how to knew how to challenge Superman, but Superman also always knew how to come out on top normally. But he was also challenged. Batman never really was challenged in a fight or ever Holly in his original animated show, if I remember correctly, when it came across the regular villains he would fight against after they made their debut. I will review Batman the Animated Series once I watch more of once I watch it again. I will review it once. I don't know, one season at a time, one episode at a time on my other show where I review shows, television shows on my other on another show of mine, and why did I bring this up? I was talking about Batman and Robin. I give that a 10 out of 10, right? Yeah. Well, I know it's funny. Schumacher's Poison Ivy offers more of a threat to Batman than she did in the animated series. Come closer to killing Batman than was her deadly kiss. But Batman avoids it because he plans to bring it on before he can get a kiss from Poison Ivy that poisons people with her venom kisses. And I was saying, I'm just saying this Poison Ivy is more of a better threat to Batman than what the Batman the Animated Series brought with Poison Ivy. Normally, they written her as a B villain, like Joker was written as a B villain too often as. Unless your Joker stars in the movie Mask of the Phantasm, then suddenly the writers know how to write a menacing Joker for Batman. Which I'm just going to say, the only time when that Joker from Batman the Animated seriously worked for me was Mask of the Phantasm. He just wasn't that great of a Joker written as Mark Hamill, given what he was given was the animated series. I honestly think if it wasn't for the Arkham games, people wouldn't look fondly back on Batman the Animated Series as well as today people look back on it. Because I think the Arkham games is what perfected the Batman. I feel like the Arkham games is what Batman the Animated Series wanted to do originally, but because it was marketed to kids, they couldn't make it that cool like the Arkham games were. Perfected the Batman animated adaptation formula, and this went all on fully with the Batman mythos. And it's through you writing the story with the Arkham games. And you play Batman, Kevin Conroy voiced by the whole. I think the reason why the Arkham games worked so well is because the writing could be mature like it couldn't be in Batman the Animated Series with the character and his villains and the world he operates in of Gotham City. And I honestly think it's also Kevin Conroy. So, I realize I'm recording the video on too longer after finishing my review on Batman and Robin. Yeah, I made the video longer than it needed to be by accident, sorry. But thank you for watching my video on Batman and Robin movie, which George Clooney starred as Batman in his only outing. Bye. Thanks for watching my video through my audience.